Erev Tov. Tonight's shiur is the nishmat my grandfather, Rabbi Yaakov Biton. I never met my grandfather. He's the father of my mother and my aunt Denise, who are here tonight, and celebrated by many more children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Levanim levanecha, he merited that he has children to his children. Now we're praying for Shalom al Israel. May there be peace in the rest of Am Israel, B'ezrat Hashem and His zechut. I'm named after my grandfather. Yonatan Yaakov is my middle name. And I try and I live my life hoping that I will give nachat and be an inspiration the way that I'm sure he was for many people and the way he is in my own personal life. Tonight's shiur is the beginning of a 4-part course called Derosh Selichah. It's part of the song that we sing when we begin Selichot. Ben Adam Alecha Nirdam Kum Kera Betachanumim. What are those words? Derosh Selichah. Stand up and speak, request derasha, the speech that the rabbi gives. Request Selichah. Speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about forgiveness. And I figured, what better to talk about on the 4 Thursday nights that we have leading up until Rosh Hashanah than Derosh Selichah. Let's discuss Teshuvah. Let's discuss what does Teshuvah mean. When I was in yeshiva, and I've shared the story many times in many different venues, I had a Jewish history teacher. He was a rabbi who taught me that you can't trust all experts in their field, because not all experts are truly experts. And he told me that Sephardim had no chachamim, had no rabbis, pretty much from the time of the Spanish expulsion until Rabbi Yosef in Israel, who was alive at the time, Alav Shalom. And in my gut, I knew that it couldn't be true, but I wasn't gifted with a Jewish education as a child of Sephardic chachamim. I forget, I wasn't even gifted with education of Ashkenazi chachamim, enough to know my sages in order. And I began a project, and that project was that whenever I would uncover the name of a chacham, to stop, to research who he was, where is he from, what was his family, what are some, not just influential works, but 1 or 2 things that I recall that he taught. And needless to say, I very quickly discovered the tens and thousands, not thousands, the tens and thousands of Sephardic chachamim, many of which lived between the Spanish expulsion up until today, our very present day. And when I was in yeshiva, there was no such program as the one that's on the screen in front of you today. This is a part of an organization called Kol Yisrael Chaverim. It has a fancy name in French. And it's a part of a movement called Chacham Hayomi, the daily Chacham, the daily sage. This is affiliated with a number of organizations which you've heard me quote before that I have what to do with, although not entirely. This project is spearheaded by a group of individuals who believe that the way to education is persistence. And if we can put every day the name of a chacham in your inbox, on your Facebook, on your feed, on your website, wherever you go to check out your social media, then we can make sure that day by day, you learn more about chachamim. What they've done is a project called Chacham Hayomi, the daily chacham, the daily sage. And just like you might get a daily halacha, you'll get a daily mishnah, a daily talmud, you'll get a daily chacham. They're going to send you in your inbox the name of a rabbi, where he lived, where he was born, who he was married to, some famous things about his history period, and then selected quotes from his life. That's been going on for a number of years already. And believe it or not, I checked tonight because I knew Marlene was going to ask me this question. Well, is it in English?
Yes. I was going to ask you.
I checked tonight, and the answer is yes, it's in English.
Wow. Joe.
They have begun translating the sage every day into English, and I'll put it out there. They put out a number of sages, but at least one a day is translated, and at least one of the quotes that they bring from him is translated into English. So you could go to Yomi, yomi.co.il, which is Israel's domain, and you'll just click English. And I'm sure you could sign up for an H. Letter H. Yomi.co.il. I highly recommend it. The literacy that you can get from sages, and almost every part of the sages' teachings are broken down into either things that are relevant in Jewish customs, things that are relevant between Jews and relations with the non-Jews that are around us, and things that connect to the land of Israel, to the future redemption of Israel. There are select categories in which every day they give you something in that topic. And it's an incredible resource, and I recommend you to please know that such a resource exists, to use it, and to know that tonight's shiur is put together by the editors of HaShamayim. And that's why I'm displaying it before you. So, B'ezrat Hashem, let's go on to our next page.
How do you look in Hebrew?
Same thing, it's there in Hebrew. Now, I just want to give a shout out to Hanan and Avinam. Where's Avinam?
He went to his
In the
mom.
bathroom, so I'll give him a shout out in a second. I'll remind me when Avinam comes back to give you a shout out. Okay? I'll tell you. Some of the Chachamim here you might recognize. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, the grave of Rabbi Eliezer Papo, the author of the Kehillat, who we study here. Perhaps before we begin to discuss Teshuvah, we have to understand that we must discuss Teshuvah in a Sephardic framework. And I don't mean that ethnically, I mean that philosophically, as I always do when I say the word Sephardic. Whereas certain Jewish cultures in this time of year discuss mourning and discuss morbid concepts of repentance and penitence and all kinds of words that don't sound like they came out of the Jewish Tanakh, but more out of the King James Bible, there is and always has been a school of thought in Judaism in which Teshuvah is a whole different experience. Not just a more happy experience. It's not a lighter experience. It's a different experience. When you come here for Selichot, and it's Adon Selichot, and it's Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu. Let's be honest, it doesn't sound like you're repenting. It doesn't sound like you are a penitent coming in front of the King of the universe. And the answer is because you're not. You are doing teshuvah. The word teshuvah is you are returning to the creator of the world. That is what you're doing. You're returning to who you are. You're returning to what you were meant to be. That's what you're here to do. And teshuvah, when it's done properly or done within a Sephardic context, is one that involves more than just you. Teshuvah is not about you getting under your talit and beating your chest and crying your eyes out. Teshuvah has to involve Kol Yisrael Chaveri. All the Jewish people are friends. And we're responsible not just for our own Teshuvah, but we're responsible for each other's Teshuvah. And you might find that in the first words of the Kal Nidrei prayer. What is the opening sentence of Kal Nidrei? Oh, Dad, do you mind lowering that fan? I can't hear myself over that fan. You leave it on, just low. What is the first words that we say before Kal Nidrei? Thank you. Very good. With the permission of the heavenly court, with permission of the earthly court, we allow ourselves to pray. In the Sephardic nusach, et ha'avaryanim, with the Ashkenazi nusach, im ha'avaryanim, we allow ourselves to pray with all of the sinners in the world. And it makes you think about something. Why the day of Yom Kippur, where I'm trying to be the best that I can be, am I talking about the sinners of the Jewish people? And the answer is very simple. How dare you come to Yom Kippurim and think this is all about you? And think that Teshuvah is all about you? And think about, I can stand here alone and ignore all the people in the world who don't know that tonight is Yom Kippurim. And the first thing that a person does when they're dressed in white, with a white talit and a white kippah, or a white dress, and a white covering on the bimah, and a white covering on the Sifrei Torah, and you come into the Beit HaKnesset and you look around at all your friends in arms, all those people who go with you to the battle of Yom Kippurim, and you think, look at all those Jews out there, they don't know that tonight's Yom Kippurim. That judgment, that feeling of there are people who are not doing what I'm doing, is probably the greatest thing we have to do Teshuvah for. You hear a lot of stories among Sephardic Chachamim where sometimes even the greatest of sinners, you hear things even in today's world, look, my course in LA, pagans among us. The whole purpose of that is to put into context that the sinners of the Jewish people are not necessarily who you think they are. We're beyond the place of all the people who don't observe Shabbat don't belong to the Jewish community. We're beyond the juvenile concept of all those who don't keep kosher shouldn't touch my wine at my Shabbat table. And part of that is not our being naive. Part of that is not us cutting our losses. Part of that is the different understanding of Teshuvah. When I'm returning to Hashem, I have an obligation to return with everybody. And perhaps if I can phrase it like this, when you do teshuvah on Yom Kippurim, and you say, I'm allowing myself to pray im havaryanim, with the sinners, the Sephardic nusach is et havaryanim. I'm allowing myself to pray for the sinners. Meaning, I'm here praying for all the people who don't know how to pray tonight. I'm here doing selichot for all the people that couldn't make it to selichot tonight. I'm here doing teshuvah and elum for all the other people who didn't know that tonight is a time to do teshuvah. I said, what are you busy complaining about the whole Jewish people? Don't complain. Help them do teshuvah. Do teshuvah for them. And that brings us to our first teaching of the night. This is a teaching from the editor, anonymous editor of Chacham Hayomi. Hayamim Yimei Selichot. These days are days of Selichot. V'nagu litchazek b'avat Yisrael. And we have an old custom in the Jewish community. That in these days, I want to give a shout out to Avinoam and Elchanan. They've been begging me to come to Kollel for a whole month already. And I told them tonight they can come to Kollel and Selichot. So I want to tell them I'm very proud. I trust they love to learn Torah. These days are days of Selichot. And the custom in the Jewish people, the Nahagu, this is our custom. Not our custom to line with aluminum foil. It's not our custom to have 2 sinks. The Nahagu, our custom, litchazek b'avat Yisrael, to strengthen our love of our fellow Jews. She'en lecha davar gadol me'avat Yisrael la'orer chamim. There's nothing greater that can cause awakened compassion from the Creator of the world unto the Jewish people than loving Hashem's children. Ulehatot hadin k'lapei chesed. And we're entrusted with a very difficult task. We call these the Yemei Hadin, the days of judgment. What do you mean judgment? Hashem is coming to judge the world. So whose responsibility is it to get the world free from judgment? Ours. You know how to pray? You know how to do Selichot? You know how to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? You know how to blow a shofar? You know how to hear a shofar? Your job is to shift HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mindset, so to speak, to a time of wow.
I know how.
To a time of chesed. Shekol Yisrael bechesed ksherim hem. All the Jewish people are ksherim. V'yesh lelamed zechut al Yisrael. And it's our obligation to judge the Jewish people favorably. Yisrael shoresh kadosh. We're all part of the same holy root. V'kol Yisrael kulam guf echad. And all of us are part of the same body. And in this packet, we've attempted to take Selichot and read them non-traditionally. Read them in a different lens, not the way they were intended to be read, but hopefully to connect them to other teachings in other places. And here's our course material for the next few weeks. Maybe you're welcome to sing with me. Ben Adam Alecha Nirdam Kum Kera Betachanonim Shefofsim Derosh Selichah Me'adon Ha'adonim Rechazutar Ve'al Te'achar Beterem Yamim Bonim Umehera Arutz Lezra Lifnei Shochet Me'onim Umipesha Ve'gam Resha Berach Ufchad Me'azonim Manashe Shemcha Yodeh Yisrael הנאמנים לך אדוני הצדקה ולנו פושט הפנים לעמוד כגבר ויתגבר דוד על חטאים יעל דבוש וכובד ראש לכפר על פשעים כי לעולם לא נעלם ממנו נפלאים וכל מאמר אשר יאמר לפניו הם נקראים המרחמים Chachamim. The name of the rabbi who wrote the song, his name is Rabbi Yehuda ibn Bil'am.
Wow.
His father's name was Bil'am. We know this much about him. Mamash. Almost nothing about him. He wrote this song, and if my memory serves me correctly, he also wrote the song that's in the same weight. That also spells out his acronym of Bil'am. Shefoch sicha Derosh Selichah. Pour out a conversation in front of the Creator of the world. Derosh Selichah. Demand forgiveness. Converse about forgiveness. I told you we're going to interpret things a little non-traditionally here. In the middle of the page, we brought a Gemara. This Gemara is originally in Aramaic. Rabbi Zera. We quoted Rabbi Zera recently in our Kuzari class. Recently as we had a Kuzari class. Rabbi Zera, Kasher hayalo davar im adam. This is a translation from the Aramaic. When Rabbi Zera had a problem with somebody, meaning somebody had hurt him, somebody offended him, somebody slighted him, somebody did something to him, haya over v'shoneh lefanav. He would make it an issue of constantly walking back and forth in front of him. Yesterday, I was in the Trader Joe's parking lot, and there was a lady who was parking her car, and she parked it right into my car. Thank God, nothing happened to my car. I have a big, in my new van, I have a big commercial bumper going all around. But poor car of hers. And then she got out, and the problem was, of course she's going to Trader Joe's too. So I'm spending, after we made up, would you do the car? After that, I'm trying to avoid every aisle that she finds herself in. I didn't do anything to her, but I don't want to bump into her, leave me alone. That was my natural reaction, was to avoid any further communication with her. Today in the morning, my wife woke up to go to work, and someone else had driven past our black van and knocked our mirror off the van. So, well, Hashem, today is one of those days. I'm saying Hashem is letting us do teshuvah. Thank God it's only our cars and nothing else in the world besides Hashem. Rabbi Zera, he had the opposite issue. He would never avoid the person. If you owed Rabbi Zera an apology, or you had to make up with Rabbi Zera, or there was hot air between you and Rabbi Zera, he would walk by you as much as he could. Umamtzi lo ech shiavo v'yetze lo midato. There should be a comment there. V'yetze lo kama midato. And not that he should go crazy. He made it a point that I should become an unavoidable issue for you. Because I want to help you find an opportunity through which we can reconcile our differences. Rabbi Zera was not happy with waiting for you to come ask him forgiveness. He also wasn't happy with screaming at you, hey, you owe me an apology. Someone sent me a message saying, now we're starting Slichot. That means you have 40 days to think about what you did wrong to me and ask me forgiveness. That was a joke. No, it wasn't meant to me. It was a general quote. A person generally has ego, has arrogance surrounding the concept of teshuvah. You did something wrong to me, why should I go to you? Rabbi Zera said, my dear friend, you don't begin to understand that in order to have selichah, you have to have sicha. You have to have shefoch sicha, pour out a conversation. Derosh Selichah. Selichah is not a prayer. Selichah is a conversation. If you come here for 40 nights and you're singing Chatanu lefanecha because it's a song, and you don't internalize HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I sinned before you. What is a chet? Chet. What does the Hebrew word chet mean?
To miss.
To miss. Like, what is a satan? The Hebrew word satan. Don't tell me Satan. Go find a church.
Force. Against force.
What is that?
Stumbling block.
Something that holds you back. Remember Bilam? There's something that's holding you back. There are things in your life that you're doing wrong, and they're holding you back from a real relationship with your Creator. And so instead of praying at Hashem, Hashem doesn't need your prayers. Hashem needs your sicha. Come to my Beit Knesset and have a conversation with me. In this context, some of the stories you might read about the righteous people of previous generations don't sound so crazy. When the famous Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, listen, let's make a calculation. There are 13 million Jews in the world, 11 million didn't keep Shabbat. Hashem, but if we start counting how many people died this year of cancer, come on, who killed more people this year? That's what Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev would do. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let's make a calculation. You know how many Jews never came to Beit Knesset? But Hashem, how many people who needed money, you didn't come and visit them? Now, at first thought, that's audacious. And it is audacious. But the idea is born from Selichah is a conversation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm coming to your house. We're not Rav Levi Yitzchak Abedijah. Hashem, I know what I do wrong. I'm not lying to you. There's nothing to hide from. The whole story of Yom Kippurim, I don't hide from my Creator. But I have to be honest with you about what I've done wrong. And Hashem, I'm going to be honest with you that some of these things I plan to fix. Some of these things I plan to fix the last 7 Yom Kippurim too. Some of these things I plan and I know that I'm going to fail. Some of these things, Hashem, I don't know that I'm ready to start fixing them yet. Hashem, some of these things I need your help fixing. Because clearly I'm not strong enough. Hashem, some of the people in my family need your help fixing things. Some of my friends, they don't even know to ask you for help, Hashem. Selichah is a conversation. In the words of the editor at the bottom, Sicha uslicha, conversation and forgiveness. Sicha bimkom selicha. Sicha is in place, conversation is in place of forgiveness. En tefillah belo selicha. There's no such thing as prayer without forgiveness. En sicha letefillah. And sicha, conversation, and tefillah, prayer, are truly the same thing. Shneimar, like it says in Tehillim, Tefillah le'ani ki ya'atov. This is a prayer for the poor man, not a poor man with money. A man with poor deeds. Ya'atov, what is ya'atov?
To cover himself.
Cover himself. A person who's trying to get close to Hashem. You put on your talit, or like a mourner, Chazram, who wraps their head. U'lifnei Hashem yishpoch sicho. And he comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he begs forgiveness, not because he believes I'm worthy of it, because Hashem, I need your help. It's another Yom Kippurim. It's going to be 5,780. And I still haven't done Teshuvah. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you because part of Teshuvah is vidui. It's confessing what I do. If you come to the Beit HaKnesset and think that you can hide from the Creator of the world, then you miss the whole point. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not asking for us to be perfect. He's not asking for us to repent. I don't know what the word means. He's asking for us to return. Return to the table. When two partners walk away from each other and they're not willing to speak or communicate, there's no way in the world that anybody, even the greatest therapist, can reconcile between them. The first thing we need for reconciliation is for two people to agree to sit at the same table. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this Evu, I'm coming back to sit at your table. And to be honest with you about who I am. I'm going to quote now from a Chacham, Yaakov Yitzchaki. Chacham Yaakov Yitzchaki was one of the great rabbis of Kavkaz. Kavkaz, you've heard of Kavkaz before?
Yeah.
How do we say Kavkaz in English?
Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan, is that correct?
One of those.
Azerbaijan, I think Kavkaz is Azerbaijan.
One of them.
Yeah, officially where he lived was called Dagestan. And he lived from 1846. In 1868, when he turned 22 years old, he became the chief rabbi of all of the countries around him.
Wow.
He already then was an expert in Torah and was in direct contact with many of the rabbis across Russia. We have letters from him with many of the rabbis of Poland, of Turkey, of Iran, rabbis that he was in touch with, Kurdistan, Israel. He wrote a number of books. And the 28th of Iyar in 1907, that's Yom Yerushalayim, that's good. 1907, that means that just 41 years later, not 41, I'm not counting, 60 years later, Jerusalem was going to be redeemed on that same day that he made Aliyat to Israel. He gave his son over the leadership of being the chief rabbi, and he himself moved to the land of Israel, where he spent his time writing different books. Something you may not know is there's a neighborhood in Yerushalayim called Neve Yaakov, or Neve Yaakov, if you're American. Neve Yaakov is named after Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchaki. This was the neighborhood named after him. I'm sure that all of the people who live in that neighborhood have no idea that the neighborhood they live in is named after this Chacham. Chacham Yaakov Yitzchaki suggests that when you come to pray on Yom Kippurim, you cannot pray until you forgive everybody who's there praying with you. Kol Adam, every person. B'vo'o leBeit HaKnesset yitpalel. Upon entering the synagogue to pray, Arvit Belel Yom Kippurim, the evening service on Yom Kippurim. Kodem shiatchilu Arvit, before they begin Arvit, they say, Yomar beino leben atzmo nusach zeh. You should say to yourself the following prayer: Hareini, I hereby mochel v'salach, forgive lekol echad ve'echad miYisrael, every single Jewish person, ben ish, ben isha, whether a man or a woman, ben katan, ben gadol, whether a child or an adult. Ben shechatali b'mamoni, ben shechatali b'gufi. Whether he hurt me in my money, in my finances, stole from me, hurt me, knocked my mirror off the car, or whether this person hurt me in myself, in my own being. Ben shechata b'chvodi. Whether he hurt my honor, my integrity, the things, Mark Twain always says that he loves to hear rumors about himself. He learns all kinds of things about himself he never knew before. There are people who speak about you, and they have a goal, and their goal is to make you look bad, and forgiving them too. Ben be'ones ben b'ratzon Hashem, whether they did it intentionally or they did it not intentionally. Ben b'shogeg ben mezid, similar. Ben b'gilguzem, if you're a Kabbalist, whether in this reincarnation, ben b'gilgulim achrim, whether in other reincarnations, v'harini mochel lehem mechila shlema me'ata v'ad olam, and I forgive them wholeheartedly from now until the end of time. And there is a minhag in every Sephardic community in the world. We have it in our community too. That the rabbi, before we begin Kal Nidrei, I stand up and we say, Rabotai, machalu ze lazeh, forgive each other. And everyone goes around the room asking each other for forgiveness. Because at that moment we're aware that teshuvah is not an individual avodah. It's not an individual service of the Creator. Teshuvah is something you must do, thinking of everyone else's well-being while you do it. I told someone recently who was returning to observance of Jewish traditions. I said, your litmus test that what you are doing is proper is if the people around you still love you once you become religious. How many people pretend or think or delude themselves into thinking that they're returning back to Hashem, but that comes an account of burning all the relationships with their families, with their friends, with longtime classmates, with their neighbors, with their wife, with their husband, with their children, with their parents. Teshuvah is something that ultimately drags everyone else along with him. There's someone in our viewer program who a family member did teshuvah. And 10 years later, that's the reason why this person and his wife are even in our viewer program in the first place. Because that inspiration, I have a sibling who did teshuvah, and that inspired the rest of us to do teshuvah. It didn't make us want to run away from doing teshuvah. That's what you're doing here. This is a service of an entire community. The story's hard. I received a letter yesterday from a correctional institute in Montana. Somebody who's been watching our YouTube videos.
Oh.
I was like joking.
Someone's a correctional facility in Montana.
And reaching out during Elul because they want to do teshuvah. And because they believe that from all the places that they've read or watched that this community, don't worry, we're not moving here anytime soon, but this is the kind of place which inspired them to do teshuvah. It's very hard when you live in a society which believes that certain people are deserving of your compassion and certain people are undeserving of your compassion. In social work, there's a term for this. There's the deserving poor and the undeserving poor. You'll ask people, for example, that have a handicap placard on their car. When they park in the parking lot and they come out with crutches, sir, you want a cart? The people will help them. And can I get something off the shelf from you? When a person has another handicap that's not visible, or at least not visible to the untrained eye, and they come out of the car, hey, what are you, busy parking in a handicap spot? Sometimes you even get mistreated. Sometimes there are people that I say, if their mental illness was a little more apparent, the whole world would be kind to them. Everybody would love them. But because they happen to be so much more normal than everyone else around, everyone judges them so negatively and so hurtfully. When you are talking about teshuvah, you don't have the right to select who deserves to return to the Creator and who doesn't deserve. And that's a huge work on our ego. That's a huge work on who we are. See, I decide what kind of people are good Jews and what kind of people aren't good Jews. You don't get to decide who are good Jews. You can't just decide after all these years to waltz right in here and pretend that you're close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The truth is that really, really you can't. Ki le'olam lo ne'elam mimeno niflaim. By the way, I was giving an introduction to the wrong slide, so we'll do this one anyways. When you come in front of the Creator of the world, keep that introduction for another sheet. When you come in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you have to be cognizant of Ki Le'olam, because forever lo ne'elam, there's nothing hidden. Mimeno niflaim, Hashem knows everything. It's like when I asked one of my children, whose names I won't mention, hey, who spilled the cereal on the floor? It wasn't me! You're the only person awake in the house right now. How could it not be you? It really wasn't! Okay, now at that point the education is, I would like to educate you to tell me the truth without feeling there are consequences for telling me the truth. I would rather try to educate you in such a way that the consequences for lying. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. When we stand in front of the Creator of the world and we say, Hashem, I'm a perfect person. Listen, I'm here because I have to fast. What can I do? I don't know why I'm here. Really, there are people like that. You can know. There are people like that, and let's not look at other people. Let's look at ourselves. We stand here and give it. Hashem, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I'm just here because my wife told me to come. That's why people come. Those people are in such a bad place because they don't even know. It's like the addict who doesn't know they're an addict or doesn't believe they're an addict, and so they still think that they're fine. I'll kick the habit whenever I want. I'll stop drinking tomorrow if I wanted to. Let's see you. Let's see you. Can you stop smoking on Shabbat? What about a 3-day holiday? Can you handle that? You're an addict, but you don't know it yet. The first step is stopping to be in denial. Maybe it's not the first step. I don't know the steps. But my first step. Don't be in denial anymore. To realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows everything. There's a famous story about Rabbi Akiva. It's interesting that many of the pieces of Talmud that connect to Teshuvah have to do with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva himself was a Baal Teshuvah. He was a man who for many years of his life, almost 40 years, according to most variations of the stories, he wasn't a learned person at all. And he ends up marrying, you all know the story, he ends up marrying the daughter of Kalba Savua, was one of the wealthiest Jewish men at the time and a big supporter of Torah learning. And he marries who? Rachel, the daughter of Kalba Savua. His father-in-law doesn't want to be his father-in-law. You know the story? He throws a fit. You're going to marry this guy? This person? I see something in him. I see a passion in his eyes. He promised me he's going to go learn Torah. I want to marry him. And you remember those early years, if you ever read the stories about Rabbi Akiva? Who told me all the stories of Rabbi Akiva? Chacham Ovadia Yosef. I spent 25 minutes of my life in the presence of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. He was sitting right here, and I was sitting right there, in which he shared with us stories about his wife agreeing to marry him. He said, she was like the wife of Rabbi Akiva. He said, for the first 25 years of our marriage, like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva couldn't afford a bed. He was pulling straw out of his wife's hair. He said, one day I promise you I'll put a crown on your head. But for today, we're going to sleep on straw. We're not going to have food tomorrow to eat. I don't know what we're going to eat tomorrow. Rabbi Akiva's wife says, I want you to go study Torah. And he leaves home for 24 years, according to most understandings of that Talmud. He had children in those 24 years, so you have to figure out how that happens. Let's leave it like that. Ba be'esrim ve'arba elef zugot talmidim. Rabbi Akiva finally returns to his hometown with 24,000 students in total. Do you know what that number, 24,000? That's like a stadium. All of these people know Torah only because of Rabbi Akiva. By the way, in the same story, there's a reunion between Rabbi Akiva and his father-in-law. His father-in-law hears there's a big rabbi coming to town, and he comes to Rabbi Akiva. It's Rabbi Akiva. He doesn't know who he is. Who recognizes the farmer who became the chief rabbi? He says, Rabbi, I had a daughter that I love so much, and I promised her to never speak to her again. Rabbi, can you pardon my, annul my vow? And he says, if you would know that this man would be a Torah scholar, would you let your daughter marry him? He said, if I would have known that he would even know a little bit of Torah, I would let her marry him. He said, I am your son-in-law. Go re-embrace your daughter. And that's the story of there. This is a story of reunification. 24 years pass. Rabbi Akiva's wife is desolate. She's poor. She doesn't have clothes to wear. She doesn't have food to eat. She comes in tattered clothing to the chief rabbi of the Jewish people. Yatsa kol ha'olam lefanav. The whole world, the whole city came out to greet him. V'af hi kama letzet lefanav. She even got up to go see him. He's probably on the way home. Yeah? But she hears he's coming. She wants to greet him. Amar la oto rasha. Look at this. One of the students of Rabbi Akiva, the Talmud calls him a rasha, an evil man. You know, every rabbi especially the bigger you get, has a few good evil men. These are the people that kept the big rabbis in the dark. These are the people that make sure that the rabbi makes the correct political moves they want him to make instead of the rabbi making them on his own. In the Jewish community, they call them the Askanim. The Askanim, they're the ones who essentially they write everything you know from the rabbis, they said. The rabbi just signs the name at the bottom. It's a very scary trend, it's a real one. So this Askan says, excuse me, miss, where do you think you're going? Dressed like this. What, are you going to go to a rabbi? Amalo, Yodat Tzadik Nefesh Behemto. She quotes a verse saying, the righteous one understands the soul of his beast. We use this in Hebrew as a phrase to mean, I tell my wife, listen, you shouldn't do that, you might, and she says, listen, Yodat Tzadik Nefesh, I know myself. You don't know, I know myself, I know it's not a problem for me. She says, the tzaddik, Rabbi Akiva, he knows who his beast is, meaning he knows that he created this poverty. He knows that I'm coming like this, but he knows who I am. He truly understands who I am. She came to show herself because he wasn't letting her through. So she wanted to make sure Rabbi Akiva noticed her. The rabbis kept pushing her away. Amar lehem. Rabbi Akiva notices the commotion and he says, leave her alone. Sheli v'shalachem, my Torah and your Torah, Shelahi are really her Torah. Rabbi Akiva is telling us something fascinating. Here is Rachel, Eshet Rabbi Akiva. Let me ask you a question. I don't intend this to be anything more than what I'm asking. Do we know anything about the level of scholarship of Rabbi Akiva's wife?
No.
Do we know if she's a Talmidei? We know about Rabbi Meir's wife. She was a Talmidei Chacham. Do we know about Rabbi Akiva's wife? Do we know that she was good and fashionable? She couldn't afford clothes. Do we know anything about her aside from her physical appearance that her clothes were in tatters? No. What does Rabbi Akiva say? Oh, you think you're Torah scholars? You think you have the right to stand in my presence? Everything that I have and everything that you have is because of this lady that you're trying to push away. You don't know how many merits you have. You don't know also how many demerits you have. You definitely don't know how many merits or demerits the person sitting next to you has. And when you're trying to push people away because you don't belong here, because you don't fit here, Ki la'olam lo ne'elam mimenu niflaim. Says Rabbi Yehuda ibn Bilam, remember when you say slichot, that you have no idea what goes on in the hearts of every single person in this room. You don't know enough about another person to push them away. All you can do is say, I'm an equal citizen of this room. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows every person. And I have to say that maybe that person is greater than I. I don't know. Who knows? A rabbi say, Yesh koneh olamo b'sha'achat. There are some people who in one good deed, they receive the world to come. And there are some people the opposite. They're righteous their whole life, and one thing they do wrong can destroy everything for them. The editor has a spin. Af mi she'en lo mishelo. Our idea of teshuvah is that even a person who has no merits in their own name, le'olam eino ne'elam, is never truly bare, is never truly lacking. Shesheli v'shalachem shelo hu. All of the mitzvot that you and I do, we do b'shem kol Yisrael, in the name of all the Jewish people. And so if you keep Shabbat, and you eat kosher, and you pray, and you hang a mezuzah on your door, and you're kind to people, and you give charity, you are doing all of those mitzvot for every single human being on this earth. And so when someone comes and you say, hey, who are you? You don't have enough mitzvot. Weren't you doing mitzvot your whole life for this other person? Because that's the way we're supposed to be doing mitzvot. Shiudat tzadik nefesh behemto v'amech kulam tzadikim l'lam mershu aretz. You think when someone stands in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem doesn't know who's standing? You think when a person comes, Hashem doesn't know what's inside of them? Recently I've been dealing with a disturbing trend. And I don't know why it's become such a passion for me recently, in recent months. But more and more and more and more I hear about Jews, and listen, I criticize my circles because that's who I can criticize. I can't criticize people who won't listen to me. I hear their Jewish community being split down the road of those who observe mitzvot and those who don't observe mitzvot. Most of the time, people judge observance by singling out 1 or 2 or 3 mitzvot, and the other 610, who cares about them? Meaning, keep kosher, keep Shabbat, wear a kippah, it's not even a mitzvah, but we'll pretend. And you can steal, you can be dishonest in business, you can push people in line, you can step on the homeless person, you can do whatever you want, because, hey, I'm religious. And that person, they're not observant. They give food to the needy, they clothe the homeless people, they're kind to their parents, they raise their children to be good, upstanding individuals. They love Hashem. They pray, just not in the synagogue. They observe Shabbat, just not with all the details and the rules that are written inside of the Shulchan Aruch. So who's truly the observant one? And the answer is that you don't have to choose. You don't have to choose this one is observant and this one is not. When we're doing Selichah, when we're praying, in these 40 days, is we're all, we're all standing together in front of the Creator of the world, and we're saying, Hashem, we're together. Tonight, we're together. Tonight, your mitzvot are my mitzvot, and your averot are my averot, and so I have to fix what you broke, and I'm going to give you need a little bit of money now, I'll give you a loan for the Elul, give it back to me in Tishrei. We're all here for each other. I'll read one last teaching for you tonight. Yeah, the writings of Rabbi Chaim Palaji. Have you heard of Rabbi Chaim Palaji? Who's Rabbi Chaim Palaji? What? No, it was. He passed away in he lived in 1788. No, there is very good. There's a Kaf Chaim Palaji, very good, right? And there's a Kaf Chaim Sofer. When we say Kaf Chaim, normally we're referring to the second one, not to the one of Rabbi Chaim Palaji. Because I could read from it. So, Rav Chaim Palaji was a rabbi in Izmir, in Turkey. And he lived there, he died there. He was the Chacham Bashi, the chief rabbi, one of the greatest Sephardic minds of Turkey. It was known to be a big Talmid Chacham. I can't speak enough in the praise of Rav Chaim Palaji. Whenever he would finish writing a book, and he wrote many, many books, he would make a meal, like this one, a celebratory seudah. So instead of making seudot when he finished studying something, he made a seudah when he finished writing a book. And he has many, many, many books. And at the meal he would give, after this is the 1700s, he's giving out free books to all the people who come to his seudah.
Wow.
What happens ultimately is that Rav Chaim Palaji's house burns down in a terrible fire in Turkey. And hundreds of his writings burn. And he spends the rest of his life trying to rewrite what he can from memory, and the rest from what he had handed out to other people. That's at least what he was able to preserve and bring back. We have many writings of Chaim Palaji, but they're only a drop in the sea of what he actually wrote and what he contributed to us. He writes the following in his book, Pulat Tzadik L'Chaim. Kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelek L'Olam Haba. Every Jewish person has a portion of the world to come. Yitachen lefaresh, it's possible to explain this as follows. Shekevan shemekubal biyadenu, because we have a tradition in our hands. Shekol Yisrael arevim ze lezeh, that all the Jewish people are responsible for each other. The proper pronunciation is arevim, not aravim. Vehem kedin hashutafim b'asiyat hamitzvot v'kiyum haTorah v'limudah, and they are now partners. If every Jewish person is responsible for each other, we're now partners. It means I'm signed on your mortgage. It means you're signed on my car loan. Watch. It means that we're all responsible for each other in terms of our mitzvot and our avirot and our behaviors. You know, whenever something happens and a Jewish person does something terrible in public, you know, the Yiddish, they say, it's ashanda. Well, who cares? I didn't do anything. The answer is we're responsible for each other. And even though other people have double standards in that regard, you know, nobody says, oh, I'm from California, someone from California did a crime, all Californians should be embarrassed. Yeah, but we have this standard, which we're responsible for the good things, and for this. Why will someone say, you know, Israelis, they invented such a... You didn't do anything, though. Yeah, but I'm part of Am Yisrael. I cash in on those merits as well. Them kedina shutafim, they're partners, b'asiyat mitzvot v'kiyum haTorah v'limudah, and therefore when we study Torah, we observe mitzvot, we're all partners with each other. Yesh zechut Yisrael, and therefore there's always merit for the Jewish people. Ish met re'u b'Torah v'ma'asim tovim she'oseh kedin shutaf she'esh lo chelek. So let's say I have a partner in business. I have partners in business, and I can't show up to work for a week because I have to be in Canada. So in most partnerships, this week I'll be in Canada. I'm still going to make money as if I was there. And then I'll take over, and that's how we work. That's a normal thing. Am Yisrael is the same way. Yes, the ideal is all of us should be working and all hands should be on deck, but in situations such as ours, where it's before Yom Kippurim, and not all the Jewish hands are on deck. So those of you who are on deck, you are on shift, this is your shift. Part of your teshuvah is realizing, I'm doing teshuvah for everybody. I'm doing mitzvot for everybody. And it's a very good proof text that we bring. ועמך כולם צדיקים ולכל אחד יש לו משלו ואם תימצא ריקנים שבישראל גמורים עם כל זה לעולם יש לו ארץ לעולם בא להרבות אף למי שאין לו משלו. When you find a person who is so empty from Torah mitzvot, you have to realize that this person is living on charity. What kind of charity? They're living on charity of good deeds. They don't have mitzvot. So you're loaning them from your mitzvot. And the true teshuvah that we're trying to accomplish in these days is for us to reach a place where we feel responsible for each other. With your permission, I know what time it is. I know we have slichot. I have one more slide so that I can be with you on the right track next week, if it's okay with you. I'll say this Gemara out loud. This text is not found in any of our Talmuds. It's quoted in a book called Minuat HaMa'or. This book is a book of Musar, I guess, Jewish ethical teachings mixed in with a lot of other things, a lot of Kabbalah too. This book in the Yemenite community, the tradition is to read this every Shabbat afternoon. In fact, in my uncle's synagogue, they read this out loud, kind of like you would pray. They read this book out loud, chapter by chapter. Every week they read one chapter out loud, and people already know this book. Minuat HaMa'or was written by the Mahari Abuhav. You may have been in his synagogue in Tzfat. It's the famous synagogue that was in the earthquake, if you remember this tour that you may have taken in Tzfat. Mahari Abuhav synagogue, he records this as a story found in the Talmud, but we don't have this in front of us. Actually, in the Midrash Tanchumah. Rabbi Akiva is walking down the street and he sees a man who's running like a crazy person, holding terrible load of wood on his shoulders. And he sees that people are chasing. Hey, work harder, carry more. And he stops the guy and says, listen, you want me to, if you're a slave, let me pay your, whatever you owe this man, I'll free you. And he says, no, leave me alone, I'm not a slave, leave me alone. Rabbi Akiva looks at him, and I'm paraphrasing a long story, and says, are you from this world or are you from another world? And he says, I'm from another world. He says, what are you doing? And he tells him that when he passed away, his wife was pregnant. And when she gave birth, there was no one to teach her son Torah. And he was being punished that he didn't, before he passed away, make sure that there would be someone to teach his child Torah. Rabbi Akiva says, what's your wife's name? He says, Shushmira. What's the name of your city? And he says, Al-Duka. And then Be'ota Sha'a, at that moment, Nitzte'er alav Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was so hurt for this person. V'aya olech me'ir le'ir, and he went from city to city. Ad she'gi'a le'iro, until he came to the right city. V'sha'al hechan hu beito, he said, where's this guy's house? I met this man, where does he live? Where's his household? And they say, they curse him. He asks about his wife, he says, Yimach shemav zichra me'olam, may her name be erased from this world. They didn't leave behind such good friends. He said, where's his son? He said, his son? He doesn't even have a Brit Milah, he doesn't know how to read Hebrew. What do you look for his son for? Miyad tafso Rabbi Akiva livno. Rabbi Akiva grabbed this boy. V'oshivo lefanav, and he sat him in front of him. Lamdo Torah, to teach him Torah. V'lo haya lomed, and the boy wouldn't study. Ad she'ashav alav b'ta'anit 40 yom. Until Rabbi Akiva fasted for 40 days. Hashem, allow me the strength to convince this boy to study Torah. Yitzah bat kol v'amar, a voice came out of heaven. Adzat mitaneh, are you fasting because of this? Amar hin. He said, yes. And immediately he received the blessing to be able to connect to the Son. The Karab Aleph Bet, he taught him how to read Aleph Bet. And then he taught him how to say the blessing after the meals. v'kriyat Shema, and the Shema prayer, u'tfilah, and how to pray properly, v'hemido v'itpalel b'tzibur v'amar, until finally he was the chazan of the synagogue. And what does he say? Baruchu et Hashem ha'mevorach le'olam va'ed. May Hashem's name be blessed forever and ever. Be'ota sha'a, at that moment, hitiruhu min ha'puranut. They released this man from his suffering in the next world. Uva oto ish b'cholom v'amar Rabbi Akiva, that man came from a dream and told Rabbi Akiva, tanuach da'atcha began Eden. May you always be in the Garden of Eden, she'itzaltani midina shel Gehenom, because you saved me from Gehenom. And in this, Rabbi Yehuda ben Atar, whose name you may hear, because of Rav Chaim ben Atar. Rav Chaim ben Atar, Rabbi Yehuda ben Atar says he was born in Morocco in 1655. Rabbi ben Atar says, you know what Teshuvah is? Teshuvah is המלמד לבטל הגזרה על בן עם הארץ להיות כאביו. This child was born into the world with a disadvantage. No father, nobody to teach him, nobody to give him a brit milah, nobody to show him the ropes on how to be a human being. And what does Rabbi Akiva do? He travels from city to city to city to city to city to look, where can I find this boy? Where can I find the one who needs me? It's so easy for us. The new school year started. It's so easy for us to love the easy students. The ones that listen, the ones that do their homework, the ones that are on time, the ones that act properly in class. What about those that need a little more attention? Those that need a little more care. Every teacher has that student that they care more about because they're doing them a favor. But when does the teacher begin to realize the student I'm doing a favor for is the good kid? It's the kid who's the Ben Hamar, it's the kid who is the son of a disadvantage, who doesn't have anyone else looking out for him. Who's looking out for that child? Who's there for that child? That's the reason why I was brought into this world. Those are the people that I'm looking for. Tonight, you're going to walk away from the shiur. We have 3 more planned for the future. But if there's one message I can ask you to remember, is Shefoch Sicha Derosh Selichah. Remember that this is a conversation. Your teshuvah does not have to finish tomorrow, but it must begin tonight. Remember, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zerazeh, that you are going to be standing in front of everyone equally. And if there's a person next to you who's lacking, you're the one who's obligated to fill in for them. And last but not least, stop looking for the easy projects and realize that teshuvah is helping those around you who don't know how to do teshuvah. Hold their hand. Bring them to selichot. Let them experience something they may have never experienced before. I got an email today, a message on our Facebook group. Somebody said that for many years she's a religious Jew. She's been going her whole life. She was raised observant. She went to selichot every Elul. I want to go to selichot. So every year she would go the week before Rosh Hashanah. She would mumble these words. She didn't understand what they were saying, and she never connected. Until one year she was in Israel, and someone pulled her to a Sephardic synagogue where they sang selichot, and she's never stopped going to selichot since. Somehow, sometimes, there may be people who truly want to do teshuvah, but every avenue that they tried until you was closed for them. Every door they tried to open was locked. And you never know whose door you might know how to open. You never know who you might be able to do teshuvah for, to return to their Creator properly, in real teshuvah. And I'm asking you to remember that overall, the teshuvah in the eyes of Chachmei Sfaradim is not selfish. It's selfless. And you may say, so when will I have time to do teshuvah for myself? If I'm so busy running around helping everybody, I'm supposed to put on my own oxygen mask first, no? And the answer is, my dearest friends, what else could you have holding in your hands on Yom Kippurim and say, Hashem, you know what? I forgot to do teshuvah. I was so busy helping everybody else. That's going to be the greatest teshuvah you could possibly bring to the Creator of the world. To stand there and say, Hashem, I was so selfless in a serious way, not in an arrogant way. I was so selfless that I absolutely forgot about myself. I forgot to do teshuvah. I have 3 minutes before coming today. May that be our goal. Bezrat Hashem. And I can say about my grandfather that was his life. From what I heard about him, it was a selfless man. He came to Israel where everybody used religion to make a buck. Everybody used religion to make money. I mean, you know, you go to places and you get a can of air from Israel, sardine can. They'll charge you $10 for it. Yeah? The Jews will make money off of everything. It's a rock that went to Uman. It's a string that came from Rachel's tomb. It's a note in the Kotel. Everybody will take your money for Hashem. My grandfather came to Israel and was poor. He was rich in Morocco, but was poor in Israel. He faced a lot of that discrimination that we've spoken about here. Every Joe Schmo and his brother became a rabbi, and he, ultimately at the end of his life, through some connections, managed to become a rabbi in an Israeli army kitchen. But ultimately he had a Beit Knesset where he was the Chazan of. And ultimately he was sitting in the Chevra Kadisha every night, praying by dead body. Today in San Diego, you have to pay $250 a night for someone to pray next to your dead body in the morgue. And he did it for free. And they said, we can pay you. I don't take money for these things. And he woke up the next morning. He was up the whole night praying and went straight to work. He didn't take money for it. For Chazanut, he didn't take money for leaving the synagogue. At his funeral, people came back to pay back loans that he had given them. My aunts and uncles didn't have money. But somehow my grandfather had loans and money to give out to people. There were Arabs that came to return back the money that he had lent to them. And a person has to say, the truest merit that I can have is to focus on the rest of the world. And when I stand there, Ben Adam, Hashem, I did not fall asleep as Elu. Kum kera b'tachanunim, I woke up and I was Derosh Selichah. I demanded Selichah. I demanded forgiveness on behalf of my people, on behalf of my friends, on behalf of my family. And I'm Shofech Sicha. I'm being honest with you, Hashem. I haven't done enough teshuvah for myself, but I'm starting tonight.